We operate both here in the U.S. and in Jordan, although primarily in the Kingdom of Jordan. So, let's see if I can get all this technology to work here. Our mission is basically empowering youth to empower themselves. We're driven by our belief that every person has a right to identity. They have a right to have a sense of community and a right to pursue a peaceful and happy life. And our impact at a glance, we do youth and women's empowerment. We are working to prevent the spread of extremism. We are aiding in rural economic development, in community development, and we, to date, have graduated over 250 students, primarily women, in vocational trades. So, the key components of what we do, we are a community-centered design organization. Now, community-centered means we don't have the answers. We have research, we have ideas, but we go to the community leaders and the community members and we ask them what they feel the solution is to the problems that they're facing are. And then we work to empower them to fill those solutions. And so we are a 100% community-led group. We just provide all of the support that the community needs to develop these projects. So the whole program that we're doing was all based on interviews, thousands of interviews across all these communities to figure out what really is the need here, what's going on, and what can we do to improve. We teach cutting-edge vocational education and entrepreneurship training. That was what the need was. I moved to Jordan to do research, had an idea that they might need vocational ed. Like you, I did all of my career in vocational education and made my money building homes and things. And thought that it might work, might be a solution to their problems for youth joining extremism, or for youth just being unemployed or displaced through violent conflict. And it turned out that that was a need. So we got that there. And then empowerment through peace building training. So I actually have a degree in peace building. It's pretty useless, actually. One of those degrees you get, well, you got to make your own job for it, kind of thing.
You would be very nice at my house with the children.
Well, see, that's what I thought too. But my wife's the one who resolves all the conflicts. That's what did I go to school for? Anyway, it works out. But we do train peace building and help them. Well, we're going to dive deeper into that, but we talk a lot about cultural narratives, conflict narratives, and helping them see beyond themselves and their communities. So, let's go a little bit deeper. Is there any questions so far? This is actually a brand new presentation, so it's the first time I'm giving this. You're my test audience here. But there we go. So, who knows where Jordan is, I guess, would be the first thing. You know where Jordan is, you know where Jordan is. It borders Syria, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia. I don't know why that didn't come to mind. And Israel on one side. It's kind of sandwiched in there. They're a very safe country, but they are home to 1.4 million Syrian refugees. And then that's just Syrian. Let me zoom in here. 70% of their country is actually refugee. Multi-generational. You have Palestinian refugees, you have Iraqi refugees, Afghani refugees. Jordan has been the safe place to go to for the last century for people seeking refuge. The issue is that you have a 15% unemployment rate in the country. That's for Jordanians. Many refugees actually aren't allowed to work. They don't have work permits or work visas. So if they are working, they're working illegally. And then with youth, that number is just blown out of proportion. Almost 50% of youth, Jordanian youth, are unemployed, and refugees, that number is even greater. So the result of that is that Jordan has become kind of a hotbed for extremist recruitment. You have a lot of people that are sitting on their hands. You know, they don't know what to do. You have someone come in, hey, I'll offer you a job, I'll pay you to do this, I'll take care of your family. It's very appealing. Same thing we see in inner cities with youth unemployment and economic hardship. But the ARC, is anyone familiar with the American Refugee Committee? They're kind of, whoops, went too far. There we go. Let me go back here. If I can. There we go. They went in and did a bunch of research, all interview-based, where they asked refugees, what is your greatest need? And they compiled a list, and there were 3 needs that outbeat all of them. That were these. They had little to no sense of community. Their families were deteriorating. They were being split apart. The stresses and the traumas were just collapsing the family unit, and the loss of identity. So with those 3 in mind, that's where we formed all of our solution, or our mission. Go through. So this is Jordan. Right now we have 15 schools across the Kingdom of Jordan. We have 3 up here in the north, where you have the major influx of Syrian refugees, 2 of which are not in refugee camps. And then the one is in Zatari camp. That one we're teaching bicycle mechanics, bicycle repair. Actually, kind of a fun fact, the Danish donated all these bicycles because it's like 15 square miles. This refugee camp is a city, right? And anyway, 5 years later, they're all breaking down. Nobody knows how to fix them. So the government called me out of the blue one day, you know, my little tiny house in Montana, said, hey, we need a bicycle center school and we want you to do it. So we came in, and we're teaching bicycle repair in the refugee camp, and it's been a very lucrative career for a lot of those youth that can now fix people's bikes. And it, you know, it connects the families together. They can't have cars. So, but the previous slide had mentioned 20% of refugees, or only 20% of refugees, live in the refugee camps. So there's a lot of people that are coming in. They see the camp, they see the barbed wire fence walls and the tanks in front of them, and they're like, nope, not going to do that. I know so-and-so who might know so-and-so who has a family member in this village. I'm going to go move there. And so nobody's helping them. So rather than us come in as a nonprofit and help where every single nonprofit and their brother goes, right to the camp, we decided to go everywhere where there wasn't a nonprofit. So in a lot of these villages, we're the only people that are there. And my favorite story to kind of illustrate that the community center designed approach that we have is these 2 schools here. In the center, they're in a village called Ma'an, which is considered to be the ISIS capital of Jordan. You know, it's a safe country, but that's the one village that was kind of founded by Al-Qaeda, and they fly the ISIS flag. Just very conservative, a lot of extremism being taught there. But a girl came there 3 months before I moved there in 2016, and she had the idea to start women's vocational education and pluralistic thinking. So she went in, she started her school, she got kidnapped, and they were going to kill her. Now, they didn't want to get the embassy involved or any of that, make it a big deal. So some of the northern tribes came in, vouched for her. She signed a covenant never to return and went back to, I think it was Minnesota, Wisconsin. I always get those confused. But then 3 months later, we went into the same village, you know, kind of knowing, you know, the embassy tells you, don't go there, you know, but we knew there was a lot of need there and a lot of people being recruited to these extremist causes. So we went there and met with the leaders and asked them, how can we help you? What is your needs? And the leader of this village, the tribal sheik, he's like, you know, our daughters don't have anything to do. And they're unemployed and there's no education for them. Right, so would you like us to maybe do a vocational school? He's like, that would be perfect. Like, okay. I'm like, well, as part of that, we teach peace building, which has a section on, you know, conflict narrative, which is the same as pluralistic thinking, just a different packaging. And he's like, oh, that would be perfect. Like, well, okay then. And so we ran our first school there. Nobody showed up. it was such a conservative area, the women were forbade from leaving the home, kind of a place, full burqa type deal. But the instructor that we hired, this is actually one of the students from Mond, but the instructor that we hired was so amazing that I had paid her. She was like, you know what? I know these people, I'm just going to go teach them in their homes. So she'd go around and teach them in their homes every day. And then they started coming to class. And part of the big thing that we do for our vocational training and our entrepreneurship training is we make sure that within the first week of going to school, they can sell their, I should have zoomed in for that. They can sell their trade, their skill, whatever they're making, so they get cash in hand. They see the value of education going forward. So it's more than just a trade. I love that picture. That's not one of our pictures, but I love that picture. Vocational training does a lot more than just give someone a marketable skill to go and fix things. It fosters an identity, and it gives you a place within a community. You become the community carpenter. You become the community hair salon stylist. I don't remember the word. Cosmopolitanist, maybe. I'm just going to make up words here. So just pretend I'm smart. I have a degree in peace buildings. Anyway, it's empowerment through innovative thinking. Now, this was probably my favorite one because I grew up always going to the tech classes. From a young age, my parents were like, what do you want for your birthday? I'd say the old VCR because I'd love to take it apart and figure out how it works. But, I had a lot of different jobs. I did a few years as a photographer and all sorts of things. But the one thing that vocational education taught me was that you can take something that's nothing, raw materials or something ugly, you can make something out of it. And you can remake something out of it and remake something out of that. And I took that and applied it to life, and it got me to where I am today. And that's something that we instill in our students, is that you can create anything with your life, regardless of what it is now. And then we supply them with the tools they need to succeed. That's actually quite literal. We give them the tools that they need to start up their business, to start making money. They actually earn them through their coursework. Before they graduate, they have to do a community development project, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And then prepare to rebuild. Refugees, they fled their home countries. They all want to go back. I haven't met one that doesn't want to go back. And we're trying to give them the skills in leadership, the physical skills, the peace-building skills, so they can go back to the countries they've had to flee and lead out on the rebuilding of those areas, wherever it may be.
So how do they keep ISIS and the bad dudes from stealing their tools and keeping them from working? Do you know?
Well,
how do they keep safe?
Most of the members who are ISIS sympathizers are actually sending their daughters to our schools. It's a very economic situation more than it is a religious ideal. There's not a whole lot of options. A lot of these people were soldiers under, was it Bin Laden or I don't remember the other guy. I'm so scatterbrained tonight. I'm sorry. They were soldiers as a career, and then when we pushed them out, or the U.S. forces pushed them out, they lost their jobs. So they're kind of like, well, I'm a career soldier. What do I do now? And then another army comes and says, we'll hire you. I'm like, oh, great. So it's not so much, no father really wants to see their daughter not succeed. And the vocations that we teach in these really conservative areas are very conservative trades. We're not going in there saying, hey, we're going to teach you about French fashion and bikini manufacturing. We go in and we teach them things like cosmetology, that they can run a salon in their home. Women can come to the home, be private, have a salon, which also creates a safe space to gather, which a lot of these villages don't have. That's in a later slide. But or sewing, clothing manufacturing, clothing repair, all of these kind of vocations are very acceptable for women. And then we're kind of easing our way. We have a partnership with Intel, So we're working to get some of these trainings for like app development and computer programming that can also be done from the home virtually, and hopefully get them employed by Intel, actually, is our goal. So our CFO's one of the big wigs at Intel, so they help us a lot. And then that kind of leads into filling the local skill gap. So like I said, it's all community based, so we ask, what does your village not have? And they'll tell us. You know, we have to drive or in a taxi 14 miles if we want to hem our pants, or if we want to get our hair done for a wedding or for an event or whatever it is. And so we try and fill the local skill gaps as well. Which there's a global skill gap, so micro, macro, it's a whole different thing. Actually, it helps refugees if they do choose to migrate. It would be on a completely different visa if they're vouched for by a company. It's a work visa instead of a refugee visa. So we're working both skill gaps there. So the entrepreneurship trainings, a lot of that's rural economic development. I'll just kind of pop these up and we can talk about them. There we go. So right now, almost all of our schools, with the exclusion of 2, are for women, because all of the community leaders said our women need schooling, they need jobs, they need things that they can do. Women's unemployment in Jordan is like 70%. I don't know why I didn't put that slide on there, but that's what we work on. So these women, we help them start their own businesses in either clothing design or retail or whatever it might be that they've chosen to do. And the ones who don't want to start their own business, we line them up with apprenticeships. We find other people in the community or a neighboring community that are doing that successfully in the field, and we get them into an apprenticeship to eventually take over or learn more off of that. And then we really focus on e-commerce. The Middle East has not yet hit that tech wave where everything's online. You know, Google Maps doesn't really work. Just a lot of different things. In some places it does that are more wealthy, have more Western influence, but we're trying to get all of our students ahead of the internet wave that's going to hit them in the next decade or so. So online marketing, selling overseas, all that kind of thing is something that we teach them. And then peace building training, wonderful picture, the back of my head there. But that's Mohammed Al-Tanaouni. He's one of our partners. He's the grandson of one of the biggest sheikhs in Jordan. Does a lot of wonderful work with us. But peace building, like again, we create safe spaces for people to gather. A lot of it has to do with these salons, especially. We've gotten a lot of reports back that the community women just love the salons. They never had a place where they can just sit and talk and gossip, I guess. I don't know. I've never been in them. My wife has. She would know. But I have not. See, combating extremist ideals. We talked about that a little. We don't need to hit on that again unless there's questions. Community development. That comes with the community development projects that each student is required to do before graduating. It's similar to the scouting program a little bit. You know, you got to get an Eagle Scout. But for this one, you have to use your skills to build the community you live in currently and do a service project in that vein. And then you receive the tools that you need for your chosen trade to be successful. And then strengthening the families. A lot of our peace building program is just conflict resolution, and there's no better microcosm of conflict than the family. So we talk a lot about how to resolve family conflicts and how that equates into resolving large-scale conflicts as well. You know, the basics of seeing people and doing that. So this is probably my favorite part. In 2016, when I was first getting started, ISIS attacked the village of Al-Qarak. I don't know if any of you have heard of the Al-Qarak Castle. It's one of the biggest castles in the Middle East. It's a 13th century Crusader castle built by the French. Did I say French? I don't remember. It was built by the French. deep within this economic depression. The youth were all sitting on their hands. No one really knew what was going on. So we kind of made them one of our big focuses when we were starting up these schools. And then they were attacked by ISIS. And they killed a bunch of people. I'll show you the video. It has the statistics and everything. But our students were phenomenal. Our students knew the people who perpetrated the attack. They were Jordanian members of the community that people knew that came in and did this, and they said enough's enough. For our community development project, we want to work together and rebuild the castle. And so we called the Department of Antiquities. They asked me, another reason my useless degree worked a little in my favor is they asked me if I had any experience, and I told them I was certified in cultural anthropology, which is not architectural anthropology. But they said, anthropology, American, great, do it. So I called a bunch of anthropologists. We got the information that we needed, and then the youth of that village got together and brought the whole village together in rebuilding the castle. They held a forum on counter-extremism, where well, I'll tell you the story about some of the interfaith stuff that happened. Let's just go ahead and watch the video. To thank us, which is very uncommon for people to receive that. One of the other benefits of that was this was it was huge. It was on the news. Everybody in Jordan was talking about it, and Rebuild for Peace became the American school that teaches vocational education. We're actually the only American school operating in Jordan. The way their education system works, it's actually very difficult to be a school operating within Jordan. So obviously I'm very proud of our students and what they've done. But some of the things you haven't heard on the news, this is actually a piece of that castle. You saw in the video the iron gate with the bullet hole. It's this chunk here. It was too much work to fix. The Department of Antiquities director said go ahead and cut it out, and then presented it to me as a gift. So I want you to feel that. That has its own unique story from the attack. One of my favorite stories that I like to share that you never really hear on the news is they ambushed the castle, they ran in, they got up on top, and they started shooting people that were visiting the castle. And one Canadian woman had been shot and was bleeding out in front of a restaurant, and a Karaki Muslim man ran up and threw his body over her and started trying to address her wounds and apply pressure. And the member of ISIS screamed down, "Let her die. She's not one of us." Like, you're a Muslim man, whatever it was, his jargon. And he said, "No, she's my sister. And she's just as much a part of my family as you are." And this enraged the ISIS man, and he said, "If you don't move, I'll shoot you too." And then he ripped open his shirt and he said, "Shoot me." And he shot him. But it united Jordan. The Christian community basically canceled Christmas. This was December 16th, I think, is when this happened. Just a few weeks before Christmas. And all of the Christians got out in their congregations and went around to their Muslim neighbors and gave Arabic coffee. It was just beautiful. I'd never seen anything like that. You just saw people walking down the streets just talking. But that's something you don't really see on the news. You just see the bad part and they don't talk about anything else. So I wanted to make sure and share that. But these are some of the things that our students are actually saying. They say more about the program than I do. Can I have a volunteer reader? Erica.
I've loved art since I was a kid. I love to be creative and
Was presented with one of these and wears one, the mayor of Altofila. And anyway, they're really incredible what she's doing. And then this kind of goes off from what we've been showing you, because obviously this student is not a youth. But can I get someone to read this last one here? This is written by Theo Dye. He was one of our interns from England, so it's British English. Yeah.
Being present for the first lesson in the Marka Center was surreal. We knew that students were keen to get going, but there was no way I could have imagined the extent to which that was true. When the class began, the students started giggling. For a second, I was confused, before I realized what was going on. For many of the students, this was their first time in formal education. The group of mothers and even grandmothers was laughing.
That we had this center open in a village called Marka. It was a refugee camp in 1960 for Palestinian refugees in one of the Arab-Israeli wars. And they're known as the lost generation. They received really no service, no help, no education. And now they're older. And we went to Marka and said, hey, this is kind of what we're doing, and what does your village need? And they said, well, these older women have never had any education. And so we opened up a center for them. We said, what should we teach? They said a lot of them are driving, long distances in taxis to repair their clothing. So we opened up a clothing repair school. Well, Fatima was my favorite student there. We were there on the first day of classes. She had it wasn't Power Rangers, it was something out of Asia. I'm not sure what cartoon character, a little backpack, leaned up against her chair, and she was just taking notes. But it didn't look like Arabic, and I don't read Arabic very well, but the instructor told us that she had been writing all morning, but nobody knows what she's writing. No one can read it. But that was her first day in formal education. And she was just sitting there like she had seen on TV, what to do on the first day of school, just writing notes with her backpack. There was nothing in her backpack. She just had it. But she was so excited. And the instructor went above and beyond. We hired her from within the community, so she knew these women, and she began to teach them reading, writing, and some math, I believe, was the other one, after hours. And so we gave her a raise when we found out that she was doing that, compensating her for her time. So that's what we're doing. I mean, they say it better than I can. That's what Rebuild for Peace is all about. And the next part is, what can you do? Obviously, I hope I express myself enough so you all want to get involved. And we've just launched a new campaign that is a career sharing campaign. Here's a little video about it. Two are near what 1 hour of your work is. So 1 hour of your month, you're helping people like Rima and Fatima start their career for a lifetime and rebuild their life and their identity. So who thinks that's a great idea? Raise our hands. All raise their hands. Great. I knew you would. I'm so excited. So let's pull out our phones. This is the easiest part. Oh, my phone's right here. I was going to pull it out. This whole thing's on the phone. So when you get your smart device out, you're going to go to www.rebuildforpeace.org. That's our website. You can find all the information I've talked about on there. Actually, quite a bit more information. It's all written out. My wife does all the content writing. Really, really good job. She couldn't be here today, unfortunately. She's presenting in Kalispell, Montana.
So are you guys doing that together? Doing this together?
Yeah.
With your wife?
Yeah, she was the vice president, and then we fell in love.
Oh, that's so.
We got married. It's almost been a year now. Just remember that. So when you pull up there, it'll look like this. Rebuild for Peace. Go ahead and tap that red donate button. This isn't going to zap your bank account just yet. That comes later. No, I'm kidding. So once you tap the donate button, you'll be here. Okay, is everyone there? Close to there? Y'all look like you're there. So go ahead and scroll down. You'll see our Give Monthly section. And then down at the bottom, you'll see Start Changing Lives. You're going to give that a tap. You can tell that's my hand. Great
Your
hand
hand body.
Yeah. Kind of proud of that. I should get insurance for this guy. Anyway, you should be here. Now you'll notice the website changed to ActBlue LLC. We go through them because they gave us the best deal for a fundraising donor software. You can look them up. They do a phenomenal job. Way cheaper than PayPal. You can use PayPal. I'll tell you that in just a second. You are here. You'll scroll down to the bottom. You'll see this. If you have a smartphone or you pay with Apple Pay, you can do that. I've never done Apple Pay. Always been scared of it. Apple has too much power, at least over me. Anyway, so here's the donation page. If one of these reflects your monthly, hourly compensation, I hope it's this one. I hope you all make that much money. And if you don't, I hope you do are prospered. Did I skip one? Okay, there we go. Yeah, tap right into the amount that you feel comfortable giving monthly. Obviously, don't break the bank, even if it's 50 cents. Like really, we just want to get people involved in our mission. And then the most important part is checking this box here. I think I zoom into it. I got real technical on the presentation here. Here we go. Woo! Make this a reoccurring donation. So that's what provides sustainability for us for decades and years to come. So we're really looking for sustainable funding. The Jordanian government and mixed with the Jordan River Foundation and the Qatar government have already given us over $1 million to keep running these 15 schools, and we're working to make sure everything is sustainable in the long term. So we have this window to get a monthly donor base of people like yourselves to keep us going, and growing until we become the McDonald's of vocational education worldwide. That's the goal. It's like we'll start with 1,000 schools, and then it'll be the McDonald's. And then let's see. There we go. Whoops, went one. Well, it's kind of intuitive. Just hit the. Is my finger too fat? You hit the donate button on there, and it'll take you to this page where you will find your PayPal option. So enter your payment information or use PayPal. PayPal's right there. If that's what you feel more comfortable with doing. They provide an awesome service as well. Well, thank you. That's all of us. So that's the first ask. The second ask is probably even more important than the first ask. We want to get you involved in helping the students in Jordan, helping refugees, and being a part of our wonderful cause. But we would also like to invite you to help other people learn about what we're doing as well, so they can have the chance to get involved in making positive global change. So who here can host a small gathering like this one in 1 to 2 weeks' time with 10 to 25 people, family, friends, neighbors, or coworkers? And the best part about this is Rebecca